Hello, you're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. Because it's more fun to believe. Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening to another experience of Me and Paranormal You. This is your buddy Ryan Singer. I hope you're doing well. I'm doing great. I'm excited today because I'm joined by my buddy, Chantelle Luttrell of Do Re Mi. I think I got that right, didn't I?
Close.
I was close. What did I get wrong? The last name?
Lateral. Lateral.
Luttrell.
I
Shoot.
know it's
Okay, so it's Chantelle Luttrell of Do Re Mi. Um, Sorry about that. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have a last name that is so simplistic. Most people know how to say singer. Um,
I've always said thanks, Mom, for the Chantelle Luttrell. Like that's what for the years of rhyming name. But
yeah, right. It's, what is it about us that we just love to rhyme? Um, I mean, I love rhyming. I love a good rhyme myself. But anyway, I'm wearing my throat chakra ointment
yay.
for this, and I've also got my beautiful rose quartz um, as well that you generously gifted me after a show in Cincinnati a couple weeks ago now, I guess. Um, so thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And that was so funny. I think we've seen you like 3 times live now, and so funny. I
Well,
love
I
your shit.
appreciate that. Yeah, I'm trying to. I mean, this interview is, by the way, is not going to be about me. But I am trying to like build my silliest hour um, that I've had so far. Because you guys, you saw me outside, right, in the parking lot.
Yeah, we were outside. And like how funny because like we didn't know how to act. We're like people. Like it was the we just but hysterical like, nonetheless. It was necessary. Um yeah, that was outside, and then we were at the Post Town taping, and then just a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, the actually I was just texted by my buddy Tim Irie, who's got Post Town tonight. He's like, if you're in Dayton, I've got Post Town tonight. So now I'm like, oh my God, am I going to Post Town tonight? Like unexpected Post Town haunted school visit. Anyway, I want to talk about, the things that got you involved on the path you're on now, and specifically what that is for everybody listening. Um, but you're making some really really beautiful cool stuff, and so I'm curious how one becomes the curator and the crafter of such things, and was it always that way for you?
So God, I don't even know where to start. No, it was kind of like to the point where I joke sometimes, joke air quotes about like, am I a walk-in? Like this is because things have changed so much from, point A to point B. Um, I was in the casino business for 15 years. Um, got into using oils to completely replace my medicine cabinet, my over-the-counter meds. So like that was kind of like trickle into that. And then I'm like, okay, holistic medicine, holistic. And then Reiki came into play. And once I was attuned to Reiki 2, the idea of walking into a casino was not happening. Like just I felt terrible. Ryan, have you been into like a casino or an environment like that where the energy just is a little thicker, a little?
Oh yeah, I unfortunately have such a deep love for casinos. But
I mean, I do too,
it's yeah,
but to
it's
be there, not to work there. That's
yeah. But I will, I think some. I mean, I do love casinos. I mean, I love like the excitement and the jazz of it all. But it is a thing for me where 50% of the time when I go into a casino, I don't even sit down at a table and gamble because it's an energy thing. Because there's
uh-huh.
only a couple different games I even enjoy playing, and if they don't have them, I just kind of walk around and then leave maybe. But or if the energy is too crowded or it's too weird or too wrong at like the
Hmm.
roulette wheel or somewhere else, I won't even sit down. So I walk around for an hour trying to find a place to even gamble, and half the time I can't, just because I'm like, ugh, there's just too much desperation at this table. It's going to wear off on me, etc.
Yeah.
So maybe similar, but I've never been attuned, especially at Reiki too. So it's probably, you're probably a little more tapped into that.
Well, and I think it's different for everybody too. So being at the time 15 years of being a dealer, so you're tethered to
Wow.
that space. You're tethered to that space. So like once you kind of open up to different energies, because like, and I hate to overuse empath, but like I think we're all empaths on a scale, depending whether it's a little bit or like, feeling the energy in the room. But like it ramped that up for me. To where it just physically I felt different. I walked in and like you go in and your posture changes and it's just yeah. So that's what led me. I got to the point where I was so uncomfortable. I'm like, I can't tell myself over and over that I feel gross when I'm here. I can't do this anymore. And that's 2019 is when I left. That's when I realized, oh crap, like manifestation is like legit. I knew it was legit, but it's just kind of a thing. Oh, you manifest what you want, sure. But like this is literally, I was telling myself that over and over, you got to get out of here, you got to get out of here. And I didn't do it myself, so the universe made it uncomfortable enough. So I was gone by the end of 2019. Launched Doremi Holistic Wellness. So I'm like between oil education, non-toxic living, my Reiki practice, I can ramp that up. I sing in a band. So I'm like, that'll help supplement to get started. And then 2020. So yeah, it was the last like 4 years have been very interesting transitioning into um uncomfortable. Like I've embraced, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. That's how in my journey anyway. But
Yeah, and it's such a, I mean, it's such a bummer that it has to be that way, right? Like why can't I just be comfortable and grow? Um,
sure.
wouldn't that be great? There's also something interesting too about this that I've never considered when I've been in a casino before, which has been, hundreds of times. But the like they should have part of the employee compensation package should be like Reiki cleansings after shifts, or I don't know if they even call them shifts or not, but for all the dealers, because you're just absorbing so much, like whether it's just desperation or it's just drunken wildness, or
Mm-hmm.
some people I imagine are just bored. Maybe they're retired and they just have a casino not too far away. They just need to get out of the house and be around people, so they go there. There's all kinds of different reasons why people are at a casino, I imagine. But yeah, got to get, just absorbing all of that as like the epicenter, because the dealers are the source, right? I mean, they're the ones dealing the cards, they're the ones spinning the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I guess craps might be the one game where the dealers aren't the focus of like, oh, come on, all that energy, right?
Yeah, they're just kind of wrangling it. You have a table
Yeah.
full.
Yeah,
But yeah.
and craps is that's interesting, because craps to me has always been the wildest energy. That's where you always hear the yelling and the cheering and the screaming in a casino. It's the craps table, and it's the one place there's not a real, like, just one person who's in charge, right? It's keeping all of the kids in line at the table.
Yeah.
Is every other table has that except the craps table, and it's the wildest. Maybe that's not a coincidence, but okay. So wow, 15 years. Were you? So I'm guessing it was Riverboat, or were you in Vegas, or?
Yeah, no, just so I'm not far from where you're from. I'm in Cincinnati. So like I'm 10 to 15, 20 minutes from Kentucky or Indiana. So like I was over in Indiana. Now we have them in Ohio. I've got some friends that work down there. But yeah, 15 years. That was a long time. A long time. It was like what I did. And then just all of a sudden it got super uncomfortable. I mean, I was never like, I'm doing this full time for the rest of my life, but it was just, it felt very abrupt. And yeah, it was just kind of like non-toxic Reiki. And then I hated doing vendor events, hated it. Like, I'm like, this is not my thing. Too many energies back and forth. And then all of a sudden, I feel like I get a goal at the beginning of the year. I get this like mission that I can't get it out of my head. And it's a theme. And until I do it, I think it's I have a guide that will scream in my ear if I don't do what I'm supposed to be doing. So like Henry's like, you're doing vendor events, like get used to it. So now that's what I do a lot of weekends, like almost every weekend, depending on the season. But yeah, so I just changed my route of peopling is what I did. So different. That's what led me to make the crystal jewelry and the different things like that. It's just more ways to connect with people.
Well, I want to talk about the jewelry, but but first, let's talk about Henry. Uh,
Ah,
Henry sounds like not taking it. You're,
yeah.
I've got information, and don't put me off.
Yeah. Well, and I realize like I can be, I'm silly. I can be a smart ass, but I'm like, oh, some of this is Henry. Cool. I've got a scapegoat. Um, so yeah, he is pretty intense when it's like, and you get like looping thoughts or like, okay, I can't let this go. I can't let this go. That's kind of what happens. Like, and this is the second or third year in a row that like comes January, I get a thing. Last year it was vending. This year it was branching out. Like I need to reach more people. So like just to more connections. And I'm reaching some really cool people that I can collaborate with locally that I wouldn't have if I didn't branch out and, drive a few hours away for a show or, reach new people that maybe I had felt like intimidated by. I'm kind of like stepping into it is what it is, relinquishing control, just kind of stepping into what's supposed to be happening. But yeah, Henry doesn't let that go.
That's really funny. I'm curious how you met Henry, or how you became aware, or however you want to describe it, of Henry's influence, impact, or participation and
Yeah.
in what you do in your consciousness or in your daily practice.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because, we all go through like imposter syndrome of like, is that no, that's not, that's just me. I'm thinking, overthinking. I had a session. I did some tradesies with a friend of mine who runs a local metaphysical show, well, in Kentucky. And I gave her a Reiki session. She's been reading tarot for decades. And she's a psychic medium, I believe, or just psychic, but she's like, your guide, you're like walking around with Saint Germain and your main guide is a guy named Henry. And I'm like, Henry, like that's my grandpa. She's like, it's not your grandpa. Like, and she described him to a T. And it was funny that when she gave me that visual, I could like it related. And I'm like, yes. She's like, he's like relates to you. You guys, he might cuss at you here and there. I'm like, yeah, that's not me cussing. I'm not the bad guy. No, but it's just funny. I have a daily relationship. So you asked about like how we interact. Um, I'll go in before I do anything. Before today, I'm like, keep me cool, Henry. Like podcast, like connect. Let me share any information that Ryan, wants to know, or like, I just talk to him like he's my buddy that's helping me out with everything. I don't know. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just like he's there and I'll talk to him and I'll ask for signs here and there and they'll pop right up. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think looking for a very simplistic way to describe something so ethereal or immaterial is probably a fool's game, right? Um,
Mhm.
it's really cool and fascinating. It reminds me of all these different movies over the years, because I love the supernatural and the sci-fi genre, obviously. And there's it reminds me of God. It's like the Golden Compass was turned into a series. and it was on HBO, I think. But everybody had their demons or their daemons or whatever, these invisible to a different reality and a different dimension. These creatures would be invisible, maybe, but it's like these companions that they walk with, right? Who are like kind of their consciousness, their feelings, some of their deepest thoughts and emotions were kind of manifested in these demons. And it's and all the people that I know that talk about their spirit guides, it's to me it's something really fascinating, and it's really cool because now you're tapped into, and like this, there's a companionship, right? That probably develops over time once the awareness sets in.
Hmm.
uh,
For
i'm
sure.
i'm i'm interested to know. I mean, this is making me really want to try to tap into and find, like a spirit guide, right?
Sure.
And I'm curious if they're like the nature of that relationship, if there are similarities to meeting people in the real world, in the material world, and getting to know them slowly, or is this kind of a not an unhealthy boundaryless relationship where it's just like you meet and you're like, we love each other eternally forever now,
Right.
or if it's what is the progression, what's the nature of that?
Like get acquainted. Well, that was kind of it. It was kind of like the awkward first date. So I'd be sitting and like, hi, Henry. Like an awkward phone call. But now it's just like, dude, like I'm in the car and I'm like, dude, I need you. Like, we got 7 minutes to get from A to B. And yeah, it's just funny. Like I just have a ongoing dialogue with him now where it's just as if he's sitting right next to me and he can like he's my little genie that can grant wishes. It doesn't always work, but he helps either me calm down or the situation improve or something kind of funny is I'll get random messages or visualizations during Reiki sessions, for example, where I'm like, fine. And I noticed that this is like when I was trying to decide, is this my voice, my inner voice, or is this, a message? And when I started realizing the difference, it was when it looped in my head and um I couldn't get it out of my head until I verbalized. That's when I realized, okay, that's Henry. So like he sends me rando messages during Reiki sessions and I'm like, why can't I be like medical intuitive? Why can't I be like something? No, I just have to point out that like, hey, I know this is weird, but like, did you listen to Joan Jett on the way here? They're like, oh, I totally did. I'm like, great. Ta-da, that's your message. Like it's take this for what it's worth kind of a situation.
That's really
Uh,
funny.
yeah,
Henry
it's
just sounds very excitable and like likes to share what they also enjoy almost. Like, oh, they were listening to like Joan
yeah.
Jett. Ask them about Joan Jett because I love Joan Jett.
It's like, oh my gosh, I was at 80s yoga like 2 hours ago. I'm like, great.
Yeah, that's really funny.
Yeah, so it's just little goofy things like that that he just like, I'm still here. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so okay, I guess it makes sense that we have these friends in our lives that are also intuitive, psychic, mediums, etc. And it's like a collaboration of life and of experience, and doing Reiki and then being told. Also, by the way, BT Dubs, there's somebody named Henry hanging out, which is really cool. Um, I mean, I think there's in the big scope of things, I understand what you mean when you're like the imposter syndrome,
Yeah,
and because all of us have been raised in such a way in a world in the modern times to where there's not invisible people that I can hang out and get actual sage advice from unless it is the monotheistic God that is the dominant one in our culture. Then, of course, it's totally acceptable, and if you're not
it
doing
checks the
it,
box.
you're
Right.
you're a problem. But so this is like such a more personalized, um, an interesting way of spirituality, in my opinion, as opposed to just a big brand. Like God is the Walmart, and spirit guides are like, the small town, the small business owners.
Yeah. Yeah. Henry is my IGA. Is that what's like?
Yeah, IGA is, kind of like a small town, but still kind of chained up in some places.
Connect?
Got some multiple locations. Um, I wonder, does Henry spirit guide in other places?
I think I would like to think that I'm the only one, Ryan, but no.
And I guess I just changed spirit guide into a verb. Does he spirit guide? Does he moonlight other places as a spirit guide?
He's like, I spirit guide around. What? Well, it's funny. I was thinking you mentioned like upbringing and I was just that was in my brain yesterday. I'm like, he's been here. He has to have been here the whole time. Like, I don't know how you were brought up, but like West Midwestern, like I was raised Catholic. So like when you have the friends when you're growing up, the invisible friends, I'm like, I bet he was talking to me since I was a kid. But then, your folks are like, oh, you're invisible friends. Like, it's all good. I'm just talking to your stuffed animals. But yeah, so I think he's been around for a while. It's just a matter of like, he's like, finally, you're like opening up to things. And yeah,
It
I
feels
don't
good
know.
to be seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like when people are like, I felt really seen, and Henry is there now. Well, there's a lot more to talk about. I'm gonna take a quick break here. We have to throw in some commercials. And just as a reminder for everyone listening, you can get commercial free experiences over at the Patreon page. So it's patreon.com/Ryan Singer. Just go to patreon.com and search for Ryan Singer or me and Paranormal You, and you'll find the page. $3 a month gets you no commercials. Isn't that the way that we all want? And I hate that I even have to do, but I'm a participant in the system of capitalism because it is the way our society is built. I live outside of our rules as much as I can, to a certain degree, anyway. But certain rules are great, actually, that I think are actually very beneficial for everyone. But I don't know what I'm talking about. Go to patreon.com/Ryan Singer and don't listen to commercials anymore. And we are back. Oh my God. So we've got to know Henry just a little bit. Henry sounds fascinating. Sounds, amazing. Um, I'm having this upswell of why have I never tried to identify and connect with one of my spirit guides. I'm wondering that right now. So this is I'm actually pretty excited about what the next few months are going to look like for me now. Like, people thought I was wild enough already because I talk to myself out loud all the time when I'm alone because
But
of
are you talking to yourself? Or are you talking?
I'm starting to wonder if I don't have like a spirit guide that has kind of a muse vibe
Yeah.
uh, to them. And it seems like I probably do. Because I mean, some of my favorite jokes I've ever come up with, they weren't jokes I necessarily was sitting down writing as much as I was just kind of like alone talking, and all of a sudden kind of feel like I'm talking to somebody, and then all of a sudden something happens, and I'm like, oh my God, um, and then
I've
it just
done
goes
that
from there.
with advice. Like I'm talking to a friend, they're spilling their guts, and I'm just like, you know what? And I give advice, and then I get off the phone, and I'm like, that was damn good advice. It wouldn't have came out of my mouth. Like I'm like, I think, yeah. So I think we tap in more than we know. We're just so used to brushing it off.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm trying to pay more attention to little things like that to see where, okay, we've just been glazing over a lot of really cool stuff that we could be utilizing.
for sure.
But
I'm curious about the transition to into this life, into a more full-fledged, uh, being a more full-time participant in the woo woo, right? And and what that looked like for those around you as well? Or did you find yourself surrounded by people who are already into it? Or was the transition a little more kind of like, oh, that's interesting?
Yeah, well, I feel like I get a lot of family and friends that are like, you find who's in like the metaphysical closet where they're like, I really like crystals. Like they want to like mumble it like, hey, I've been looking into, and it's not a negative thing. You can be open to things. I still have friends that are like, oh good, you sell rocks. Cool. Like kind of give me the side eye. Okay, you don't have to believe in it. That's fine. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting transition, especially going from something so um 3D, so like, mainstream, like this is the cool thing to do, like to into what's Reiki now? Oh, this is Chantelle. She does Reiki. She rakes people. Like I've literally heard people say, so like, you have a rake? What is
This is
going on? I'm
Chantel.
like,
She rakes people. The
yes, yeah. Energy work, anybody? And yeah, it's been an interesting transition, but it's still funny. Something goes wonky with my dad. He's not feeling well, and mom's like, you need to see your daughter. And then he comes over and then is convinced that I've had my hand on a heating pad. He's like, I don't get it, but I feel better, whatever. It's like that, just like
but
whatever.
thanks, I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
I don't
whatever.
get it, but I feel better. I think that is probably the slogan of, or it could be the slogan for, healing or healed skeptics, right?
Yeah,
The
like all things holistic. I don't get it, but it works. I feel better. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I have always been open to this. Anyway, my mom was attuned to Reiki, I don't know, decades ago, right? And um, I remember first hearing about it from her when I was, young, and just being like, "Well, oh, this is interesting. What?" Like, and I think luckily for the Western world, it's become more prevalent, right? Because of there's so much positive impact and beneficial, things that come from energy healing, in my opinion, in all different types and forms, and especially Reiki. That it's, the holistic side of things is, now it can get dark, certainly, and I think holistic medicine and practices have been co-opted by some darker forces over the last few years specifically, um, which I don't love that at all. But anything outside of the mainstream and the you know and the in the super center, can always kind of get funneled together at some point and lumped together, I suppose. But
Sure.
when it comes to, doing this as a lifestyle and as, a profession, um, or a practitioner, it's you have to find ways to keep yourself grounded, recharged, energized, etc. I'm curious, do you go to others, or is there a practice you have for yourself?
So that is, yeah, that's an ongoing, because we don't always practice what we preach. When you're like, oh, I give the greatest advice on grounding, and meanwhile I'm like up in the clouds, like,
You're floating away.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I have to I have to make sure that's something that's been a focus lately. Like, take a minute, don't get overwhelmed with what's going on, what's on the checklist. Just like, if you need to take a minute, take a minute. So like, if I need a nap, I take a nap. If I need, if I feel like I need to like put my feet in the grass, I put my feet in the grass. So it's easier said than done. But yeah, that's what I've been just trying to be, again, just being more aware of little signs, little things, or big things. If I'm feeling like super stressed out, I grab, my favorite oil. I do a breathing technique. I bring it back down and calm. And yeah, that was something that was a big thing when I first went full blown like into my new business, is learning how to, because I was used to like here and there Reiki, like a friend here, a cousin 2 weeks later, like just kind of like getting into it, but not really taking it as a business. And I spent the first 2 years, well, 2020, I did virtual workshops and kept that like separate. 2021, I came out of the gate and started my Reiki practice. I was working with a local cancer center. So I spent 2 years in the cancer community, focusing mainly on oncology patients. So, like, being in that space definitely needed extra attention with like grounding, because it was kind of like I would spend back to back time with people that were going through things and, helping them work through that at a Catholic hospital. PS. So that was a whole different.
Yeah, it's my mom uh, did hospice work,
Mm,
and this was like years ago. She'd be at the hospice, and before anybody really knew what that was all about. And how there's this funny story where she's like, so the director of the hospice place called me in to the office one day and said, Karen, I need to talk to you because a lot of our residents here, or the people that are here, they keep asking me like, hey, can you send Karen in to do that thing with her hands again? It felt so good. And he's like, what are you doing to people in their rooms?
right,
Uh,
right. Let me, I can explain. I can explain.
yeah, I can explain. I'm jerking them off. No, the I mean, like basically, this guy was
So
asking
that
my
is not
mom
what happens in my.
if she was going in and doing that to people, because he just had no idea. He's like, because the people would be like, she just does these things with her hands, and God, I just feel so much better when she's done. And uh, but yeah, the I think when it comes to you know Catholicism, the interesting part about it is that there are times where the Catholic religion is just kind of like totally wide open, as far as, oh yeah, we got like if you're talking to the right person, it's like, oh yeah, we got exorcists, but
Mhm.
then most of the time they're like, oh, we don't really talk about that. Or therapy dogs, like these dogs that magically know when someone's sick or how it eases them, or having holistic practitioners like yourself come in and do things. I think when it comes to the end of one's life, there's, you know, not to use a casino thing, but it's like all bets are off, right? It's like what makes these people feel better, what eases suffering, what eases pain, and what has tangible results. We want to provide comfort for people before they transition. And although I doubt the Catholic Church would, I don't know if they're using words like transition or not, but um, yeah. So I mean, is it safe to say that you are kind of in your own spiritual space now and moved out of the Catholic space?
Yes, yes, safe to say. It's a whole nother podcast, Ryan. Like, that's a whole
Right?
nother hour. No.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would I'd have to, I mean, I'm the same way, and I feel like, there's the blueprint that Catholicism, puts us puts into us as a child to believe in mysticism and the supernatural and in miracles. I suppose is beneficial in the way that it opens you up to the magic of the world potentially a little bit. Um, but outside of that, I haven't taken much from it. The I'm curious about the business too, and when it comes to like the crafting of jewelry and using crystals and the oils. Are you like making the oils? I guess I don't know, because when
So
it comes to oil making, I'm just totally in the dark.
So for those, I make blends. Normally that's just like those are things that I have, like that blend that you have. I usually educate on how to blend yourself for your own needs. Those are specific that I take to my shows. If somebody just wants to grab one for, working on their throat chakra or, specific, I have that line for chakras. But yeah, so I make the blends. I use pure oil, super important because the FDA does not regulate. So you can't just trust like your grocery store shelf oil. But I use pure oil and mix the blends to cater. Some of it's intuitive. depending on who I'm making it for or like what we're doing. I integrate oils into my Reiki sessions as well. So like I use um, topical use for specific concerns that it just it ramps up that session because it helps get your body into rest and digest when we're like living in fight or flight mode, which I don't know. Even me, like as a practitioner that preaches to people about calming, keeping calm, and I'll catch myself with like my shoulders up to my ears and I'm like all tense and shallow breathing. So, like, yeah, I'm going off on a tangent, but yeah, I blend my own for specific concerns. And then, yeah, did I answer that
I
question?
think so.
Henry, where are you? Didn't
Yeah,
we
right.
finish?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like totally living that shoulder life. I mean,
Yeah,
people
yeah.
watching video probably see me, trying to do that. I'm worried about my posture just from spending so much time in a car over the last 20 years,
Mhm.
fucking up my back and my neck and all this other stuff. But, um, and I mean, I've realized because my mom will yell at me all the time, like, slow down when I'm eating. Like, I eat so fast just because of working in a restaurant for so many years, um, that I've been really trying to find myself, like, find some moments to just relax. Like, I'll tell myself before even brushing my teeth or something, it's like, hey, settle down.
Yeah.
You're not in a rush right now. You're not in a
Yeah.
hurry. And um, I'm totally, that is a focus for me as well. Is I've never heard of rest and digest before, but I've never looked into all this stuff, but um, specifically to know that phrasing. But I love that, rest and digest. I mean, that sounds rad to
Like
me.
when we're like super tense and hyped up and stressed out, like our body doesn't know. This is like my line I always use. I have a selfie with a stuffed bear. Like, your body doesn't know the difference between being chased by a bear or being late for work. Like, stress is stress. So when we're in high stress mode, which like a lot of us are living in all the time, we're not getting proper rest. Our body's not, because it's so worried about calming the stress, that it's not digesting properly. Like, it's just a domino effect through the body, which is why, like, I used to tell people, even whether you believe it or not, with like in the cancer center with Reiki, it's it's 40 minutes to relax. At worst, you're going to get a 40-minute nap or a calm, and then they all get up feeling better. And when your body's in a rested state, you're in a better place to heal. So it all just goes back to like giving ourselves a break so we can heal if we need to heal, or it's just not healthy for us to be in this high stress state all the time.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. um I mean, like, in a deep way. There's something about what you just said about, giving yourself time to heal. And I feel like, grief is also part of that. Um, there's, if we don't allow ourselves that space in that time for whatever reason, like, oh, you don't have time to be sad about this. You need to, be strong for other people, or whatever the excuse could be that we're using. There is something really strong about that for me right now, hearing that. It's just like, it almost makes me emotional
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it. Because I just don't know why we don't allow ourselves the, and it's the rat race, right? Maybe. And it's like, oh, if, and I know for me, for the last, 15, 20 years, it's like, if you don't, in the world of entertainment, if you're, for me, it's been, if you don't feel like you're moving forward, you feel like you're free falling, as opposed to just holding steady and doing fine. That feels like a free fall into oblivion. And that's a very stressful state to kind of exist in for long, long periods of time. But ambiguity is part of the world of the paranormal and part of the entertainment business. And I've always loved it. Uh, and that has to be something that we figure out how to get a handle on. And as a a holistic practitioner, someone in the metaphysical space and the spirituality space, do you find that the transition for you has been trust the process, and the universe will show you the way.
100%. And that was a tough one because, like I said, getting out of the working for someone else mode and into that was a giant leap of faith. And of course, I have a very supportive partner, so that helps, obviously. But yeah, just like trusting the process. You can't just like go sit on the couch and expect things to happen. But if you need a 20-minute nap, then you take a nap. Like, trust the process, help yourself, because being stressed isn't going to help push you forward. And that's still a lesson I'm learning to this day. Like, if you're in an overwhelmed state, like, take a beat and take a deep breath and get through it. But yeah, trust in the process has definitely been a, a theme, and stepping into my like who I am, and that's pretty cool. Lately I felt like, okay, all right, yeah, so I cry when I'm stressed, or like I'll notice if I'm crying, like if I have a meltdown, then I'm like, oh, I'm moving forward. And then like, Carol will come home and she's like, you're crying, and I'm like, I'm moving forward. Like, it's like the whole thing. So now I know that if I feel extra emotional, it's okay. I just breathe through it. And I think you mentioned on like giving yourself a minute, like it's okay to be emotional, and like how many people apologize when they are emoting, when they're crying. It's like, don't just breathe through it. Don't apologize, or like,
It's like 95% of people
yeah.
who, the second they feel like they might start crying, the first, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." I've done it. When you're watching a documentary and it's getting emotional and someone's talking and all of a sudden they're talking, and then they're just, and they stop and they're always like, I'm sorry. So, and they're always apologizing. And I mean, I'm trying to remember, this was years ago. I'm trying to remember what documentary it was. Uh, Someone asked me a question I wasn't expecting, and it made me emotional. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. But like, those are always the greatest parts of documentaries, when you see someone
Sure.
like breaking through and having real moments. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, that's so wild to me that we're all so sorry for
For
our
everything.
emotional, for everything. Yeah.
Everything. Like it, that's again, I've had like multiple things I've been trying to personally work on, like stop apologizing for everything. Thanks for waiting on me instead of sorry I'm late, or thanks, just giving gratitude instead. And again, this is all work in progress, but just little things.
Yeah, I like that. Thanks for
Because
waiting on me.
yeah,
um
thanks for your patience.
but I really do I do see a t-shirt for you that just says, "I'm not crying, I'm moving forward."
I'm,
I think you'd sell a million of those.
I'm making changes. Yeah, I'm like
I
a
love
public
that line.
crier now. I'm not even ashamed anymore. I'm
I'm a
just like,
public crier. Giving new meaning to the term, the town crier, right?
there you go. There you go. So she's moving forward. It's fine.
She's moving forward. That's such a great, that I love that phrase. The Now, what one of the best things about, I think, for me, kind of just cannonballing into the pool of the wild, the weird, the mystical, the strange, is, it becomes normal, right? And these things that are really crazy or whoa to other people
Mhm.
become kind of our everyday, in a certain aspects of it anyway. But then we are reminded from time to time that don't sit on your paranormal laurels, or you get too comfortable in your supernatural seat, and you get like shocked back into like, oh my god, holy, oh, whoa, right? I had one of those just about a week and a half ago. I'm curious for you if these, like, they're almost like mile markers, right, on our our journeys, I suppose. Maybe we can think of them that way. But are there any that stick out to you that have happened to you, like in recently, that just kind of remind you, like, wow, this shit is fucking crazy, in like the best way?
Are you talking like metaphysically where you're like shocked?
Yeah, you're almost shocked by the majestic nature of it all, and you're reminded, like, oh wow, there's really this intense magic and supreme like enjoyment and tapping into the synchronicity of the universe and becoming aware of it. Moments that like help, like in the religious world, they'd be considered like they reaffirm our faith, right? These
Sure.
miracles that reaffirm our faith. So I guess in a similar way of that, in the way we think about that.
I think mine a lot of like micro thing, nothing like spectacular, but more of like asking like, okay, this is what I need. It sounds like it's not gonna, down to like, I don't know, money or a specific need for like, oh, I can't find this. And then it pops up, like asking for it and then getting it. And it's like, whoa, that was way too easy this time. Like it can't happen again. And then asking, and I don't know. I'm trying to think of like an example, an exact example.
No,
But
that is a fun one though. Asking for something and then it arrives, it shows up.
yeah,
Um, that's a really That is a really fun one. Like back when I was a kid, we used to do Jesus lost, Jesus found. You just keep saying that, and when you can't find something, and then the longer you
we
say
had
it, it's
St.
supposed to show
Anthony.
up. Oh, so you had Saint
It
Anthony,
was
yeah.
always like the Tony look around. There's something lost that can't be found, like that guy. Where now I'm like, Henry, I can't find my glasses.
Hot,
Yeah.
cold, colder, colder. Um,
Our communication's not quite there yet, but close.
that's really funny. Um, yeah, I think like those mile markers, those things that remind us, the mystical nature of the universe. Once you like really tap into it, I think is part of the real joy. And synchronicity for me, like even really strong synchronicities are reminders to be in the moment of life for me. That's how I'm framing them, or that's how I like integrate or incorporate some of this crazy weird stuff that happens. It's just like, okay, well, pay attention to what's happening right now because this is probably really fucking awesome, and you don't
Right.
need to be thinking about the future or the past. You just need to be enjoying the moment.
Yes. I've got one that you can try. I don't know if you've ever done this, but you mentioned about wanting to be more like closer with your guides. Something I've done recently is asked, like, so I lay down for bed, I kind of quiet my mind. I've been like making sure I don't look at my phone, keep the TV off. And I just sat there in silence and like ask my guides to step into my space so I can feel what it's like when they're close. And I did that the other night and like just being silly. I'm like, Henry, I need a hug. Like, hug me and let me. And I felt euphoria, like my whole body. I don't know how you feel when you get a Reiki session, but like that cool sensation through your whole body. So you should try that. Like,
That sounds
ask for
fun.
your guides to pop into your space so you can feel that way. It's like, I notice when I do have a question or like I'm talking with them through the day to day, I can still kind of like feel that shift of like when they're with me and when they're not.
That's really cool. Yeah,
So
I
that's one of the cool like affirmative moments lately.
yeah, I've like shifted in and out of routines, I guess,
Uh-huh.
when I'm going to sleep. And I need to stop one of them. One of them is me just on Zillow looking at houses as I try to fall asleep. And next thing you know, it's like, oh, I've
Hmm.
been laying here for an hour and a half on my phone in bed trying to do this, or trying to wondering why I can't fall asleep. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, trying to come up with something, and obviously there could probably be variety to it, but that sounds like a really great way to end a day,
Yeah, for sure.
just in general. um yeah, I'm gonna try that tonight. And because I used to do this thing where I'm like, okay, I would tell my guides or whoever was out there listening, right when I first closed my eyes, like, okay, show me anything that I'm supposed to be seeing right now. And I'd have my eyes closed and then see what visuals would pop up,
Yeah.
if any. And that was really that was really fun to do that as well.
I'm gonna
Uh,
try that tonight.
yeah, that's a fun one. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear from people listening too, if what the craziest, not the craziest, but like one of the most remarkable things that they might feel when doing. Because I'm guessing that people probably have unwitting or unknowingly they've done similar practices, trying to call in the space. Like, is that the what is it? It reminds me kind of like setting a sacred space or creating a sacred space, which is something that we all need to do, whether we're doing like a meditation or a paranormal investigation or connecting with guides. Um, does Henry ever give you information about other people that you like feel compelled to tell them? Like outside of like the Reiki sessions, like the Joan Jett stuff,
Outside of
has he
Joan
ever
Jett.
like surprised you and been like, hey, I usually I'm the fun guy, but like, hey, by the way, or like, I guess specifically people you don't know that well, like strangers, or or is he usually pretty keeps it close to the vest?
Yeah, like I'll get sometimes like if not specifically, but like if I'm drawn to talk to somebody that or every now and then I'll be drawn to like walk up to somebody and like give them a compliment or like things like that, which I think would be a that's something else I want to start doing. That was probably a planted idea, but I think if somebody needs to hear a compliment or needs that, like you don't know what people are going through, so like things like that here and there that I just kind of like give him the credit for, but not usually if I'm connecting with somebody because I'll connect with your guides before a session. So that's usually when I get anything. It's so out. Like I don't tell people that like you might get a message because like you never know. And it might be Joan Jett. It might be um I did have and I had permission to share this story. So I'm not like going out of like
Oh,
uh
okay. Sounds
yeah.
like we're getting juicy here.
Well, it's not super juicy, but I don't like to talk about like other folks' experiences. I'd like to keep it private. But I was like, hey, I can share this story, right? Yeah, sure. Um, so it was when we were going to your taping. We stayed overnight in Middletown. Middletown? Yeah. And like the day or two before we left to go up there, it was I was in a session and I'm like, okay, I this Grandpa Joe. Like the phrase Grandpa Joe just kept going over and over. I'm like, okay, this is not for. So, question, this is going to be strange, but like, do you have a Grandpa Joe or do I need to like watch Willy Wonka again? And she's like, I've never seen Willy Wonka. So, like, yeah, I have a Grandpa Joe. And went to your show and that was kind of the end of it and she thought it was super cool and she was trying to like read way into it. I'm like, listen, it might just be like he's saying, and there was a little bit of a specific message I'll keep to myself for her, but and she was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that resonated. So we go to Middletown and there's a candy shop up there called Grandpa Joe's. And it just was like a correlation. We walked in, I'm like, this place is super cool. I messaged her with a selfie in front of Grandpa Joe's and she's like, he's from Middletown. My grandpa's from Middletown. Like there was so many like cool connections. And I'm sure there was a few more things, but like, I don't know. That was just a really cool thing. And I think it made her feel really good. Like, I don't know. So
No,
they're
that's
not all
really cool.
lame, but there's, you know, it's not all Joan Jett either.
Oh, it's so
Henry.
funny because now there's a this is a weird looking cardinal. Just shows up right outside the and cardinals are they represent our love. This looks like a cardinal and a crow had a baby. This bird I'm looking at that just popped in when you're talking about Grandpa Joe and just saying hi, right? Popping in saying hello. And it made me think of, my grandparents, obviously. Um, and how cool that would be if when you get little pop-ins and highs and now it's gone. Um, but to me, those are the fun, really fun moments in life.
Yeah, for sure.
The, and it reminds us of our connectivity to one another. Uh, and, if nothing else, I think that is what makes a life worth living, I suppose, is, I don't want to go as far to say as like, oh, without, thank God for grief and sadness. But at the same time, yeah, I'm thankful for it because it reminds me of how deeply I was connected to another person in, our shared times here. And to me, that's, I mean, what else can we hope for? I suppose,
Right.
uh, a bunch of money. I like, I've never felt that connected to money, to where I've never cried losing money. Although if I lost enough of it, maybe. But I mean, I've been swindled before. I've been one of those people who got swindled, and their bank account got emptied, just a few years back, and it was very upsetting. I didn't cry. I didn't
Right.
experience grief in the same way that like some friends who have recently passed. It's a much different feeling.
For
Uh,
sure.
as we get to the end of this, let's wrap it up with this. I want to make sure people understand, the when it comes to the making the jewelry and these other things that it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's kind of it can be a very personal experience, right? And um there's obviously jewelry you make that, right, you sell, but if like someone was interested in, like, I have, this is kind of a piece I really want, like a customized piece.
Sure.
You do customized as well?
Yeah, if I can do it and I have the material, I will for sure do it. Yeah. And I get some requests every now and then for different stones or yeah.
Yeah, there's
That's
this. I got this great keychain. I'm gonna hold it up to the camera here, uh, as
that
well.
is blue apatite.
Blue Appetite. Um, I mean, how cool is that? And so, like, where can people find all this? Find you?
So I'm on Facebook. You can find me on the dinosaur Facebook. I'm still living over there. That's backslash oily Reiki is that one. You can find me on Insta. I'm getting better about posting on Insta. That is just my full name, Chantelle Luttrell. And you can go to, I do have Do Re Mi, and the Ray is REI, like Reiki, doremi.com. I have it connected to my Shopify store, but I don't have everything on there yet. That's something that is in on my to-do list. But yeah, you can find me on the socials.
That's cool. I think if someone would just to close their eyes, put their feet in the grass, and take a few deep breaths and be like, "What piece do I need?" And then they go to the site, they'll probably find it.
Yeah.
Um, and it's, God, it's just a life worth living when you're just being bogged down by rocks in your pockets. And I'm actually, I had these great shungite earrings, and then one of them broke, and I haven't worn earrings since, but I'm like feeling like I'm getting back into my earring phase.
And
Uh,
totally, these are shungite. That's shungite powder.
oh, that's great.
It's just some earrings.
You might have to let me know where you got those, or did you make those?
Get them. Yeah.
Oh, you made them. Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna have to talk about this.
Yeah. Can I plug one more thing
Of
that I'm
course,
pretty
you can
excited
plug
about?
as much as you want here. What else you
Uh,
got?
so I was talking about doing some cool collabs with new friends that I've been meeting. One of which is my friend Kirsten, who is Akashic Records reader and tarot. Her and I do a lot of shows where we always buddy up next to each other. But her and I are going to be running a retreat, a 1 day. I'm in Cincinnati, but this is probably going to grow and branch out a little bit more, but we're calling it Infused Energies. So she does guided meditation, which I think our first one's going to be catering towards connecting with your guides.
Hmm.
And it's going to be journaling. We're going to talk about different ways to journal and tap into some crystal information, self care with oils. I'm going to have that guided meditation is going to be Reiki infused. So I'll be working the room with energy work and aromatherapy. So like it's going to be a super cool. We're really looking forward to like having something what I think is pretty different. I haven't really heard much. I don't know, but anyway, that'll be happening soon. So if anybody wants to connect on social, I can get links if they're local and want to join.
Okay, that's great. And do you think that'll be before the end of the summer?
We're this one's planned. The first one is planned for November 11th.
Okay. Oh, 11,
11
11. Love it. Love it. Love it. Yeah. Okay, cool. So if you're anywhere in this, that Southern Ohio, Northern Kentucky, Eastern Indiana, or anywhere in the region, it's
Mhm.
worth coming over and checking that out. So make sure you connect with Chantel on that. This has been fun. I'm glad I'm I'm all over the place with my scheduling and setting things up as I'm traveling around constantly, but I'm glad we finally pinned it down and made it happen. Thank you for the great gifts, by the way. Again,
Yeah.
um, some great stuff previously as well. I'm very grateful for that, and I really love this rose quartz. I mean, this thing is fucking juiced. I love it. I mean, it's like I can't. I'm like, like when 13-year-old kids are like they first think they've fallen in love with each other, like be close to me. You're like, no, don't go far from me. Or like new relationships start. You're like, no, always be touching me. Like that's how I feel like me and this rose course. That's where I'm at in my life. I'm 47. I'm like, I can't let this rose course be too far from me.
Well, I'm more where that came from. But yeah, I'm glad you like it. And I still think it's hysterical that that was a rectangle keychain and your joke about the square, um, about not knowing
Oh,
what a
oh, about
rectangle
forgetting the word rectangle.
was. Yeah. So
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah, that is really cool. Uh, what shape are we, and how do we fit in the world around us? The new astrology system that we're developing. Um, well, this has been great. Thank you, and to everybody listening, thank you for listening. Remember Patreon.com for commercial-free episodes. I still have some tour dates. I'll be in Key West August 2nd through the. I don't know when this probably come out a little bit after we record it. So, um, check ryansearingcomedy.com for all my tour dates. You can find more on Chantelle at doremi.com. That's an REI for doremi.com. Also, all the socials, all the good stuff out there. We hope to see you at the Infused Energies retreat or, at a live comedy show. Yeah. And if not, we'll see you at the washering hole. Maybe that's the new thing. Get washed up at the watering hole. We'll see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.